Hi, welcome to Tutorials video number 3, and this one's about religion, and it comes from a question asked by Erica, which was in 16th century England during such turbulent times in regards to religion, where people forever change, I say people, I mean the monarchs, forever changing their mind between Protestantism and Catholicism. What did people do to stay safe when they're practicing their faith? Did they have secret societies or little secret handshakes or anything like that? So how did they practice the faith? So that's what I'm going to do. So it's such a massive, enormous topic. I'm going to try and whittle it down to its bare bones and just stick to how did people hide it. But before I do that, it's good to just know what happened in a nutshell, because that's a massive tutorial in itself. So in a nutshell, what happened and why did the Tudors flip from one religion to the next and to the next between families? So it started in the late 15th, early 16th century in Germany with this guy called Martin Luther, who was a monk. Not Martin Luther, oh, I have a dream, not him. A monk called Martin Luther. And he discovered a piece of text in the Bible which just simply said sola fide, and that just means only faith. It says, this text in the Bible just says, you only need faith to get you into heaven. You don't need to be giving money to churches, you don't need to be going to church, you don't need religious practices as such. You just need to have faith and believe in God. You could extend that to praying and things as well. So he challenged this, and he had it taken out with the Pope, and the Pope was just like, you're talking out your arse, get back in line. Because remember, at this time and now, the Pope was the head of the Catholic Church. He had more power, particularly back then, than most kings. He was the head of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church owned a third of all European countries. So basically, before Protestantism became a thing in England, the Pope owned the King's arse. He owned Henry VIII's arse big time. Whatever the Pope said, Henry had to do. Henry was the Pope's bitch, basically. So you can imagine how that went down. Anyway, so the Catholic Church, wealthiest establishment in the world still today, I think, is the wealthiest establishment in the world. All the gold, all the land, all the power, everything. And this little monk comes along and causes a massive shitstorm and says to the people, you only have to have faith, you don't have to go to church, just believe. Now at this time, priests were selling certificates to get into heaven and avoid purgatory. And they were standing on street corners or wherever they were standing, saying shit like, buy this certificate, you'll go straight to heaven, you'll avoid purgatory, and you'll be donating to the Catholic Church, and that's a really good thing to do, and that'll just guarantee your gateway into heaven. And Martin Luther went around and just basically told everybody that that's a load of nonsense. The Bible itself says you only need faith, but of course the Bible was wrote in Latin, so the common people can't access this. So Martin Luther had it put into print, because by this time the printing press had just about become a thing. Had it put into print and circulated it. He nailed it onto church doors, and the popes went mad. Not the popes, there's only one. This led to a massive revolt in Germany, the German peasants' revolt. Anyway, back in England, you'll see where it fits in a minute. Back in England, in little Catholic England, run by Henry VIII in the early 1500s, him and his wife Catherine, the Spanish princess, the beautiful, gorgeous Catherine of Aragon, weren't having much luck on the male heir front. And Henry were getting a bit peed off with, and he was just like, oh, get some boys already. And she was like, I'm trying. Anyway, so what he did is he were fleusing about at court one day, and the lovely Anne Boleyn caught his eye, and he decided actually he needs to get rid of Catherine and move on and try and get somebody else to have his boys for him, because Catherine obviously weren't doing her job as he saw it. So he'd got to hear about this Martin Luther and decided, oh, actually, he's right. Now, there's two reasons why he decided he's right. The sceptical person might say that Henry decided Martin Luther was right, so Henry could make Protestantism work to his advantage. Other people might say, oh, no, he believed in liberating the people. I'm sceptical, so I'm going to go with the first. So that's how I'm going to tell you. He might have believed in liberating the people, but it didn't really do much favours long term. So what Henry did is decided he was going to take Martin Luther's views and he was going to invent a Protestant Britain. Now what that meant is people would have services in English as opposed to Latin, so they'd understand what were being preached to them, they'd understand the Bible and all the rest of it. So the people were all like, oh yay, our king's amazing. It also meant that he could reinstate himself as head of the church. Not the Catholic Church, because that's still the Pope, but the head of the Church of England, a new church which he invented, right? The Church of England, which gave him as much power as the Pope had, but just in England. If you're head of the Catholic Church and all the wealth's in that church, then the wealth becomes yours. So he instantly made himself a very, very rich man. The Reformation made Henry the wealthiest bloke about, really. He was just like top dog now. It also meant that with the Protestant religion came the option of divorce from Catherine. So this was like a win-win for Henry. Peasants loved him. His court thought he were ace because he were looking after them, because he would get little bits of land here and there what he'd just nicked from Catholic Church. He could tell the Pope where to go. He weren't the Pope's bitch no more. It was just a big win for him. So what he did, he didn't want to kill Catherine because he did secretly quite love her. I always feel that there was a bit of a thing there. He never really wanted rid of her in a bad way. He just wanted her to step aside so he could have legitimate male heirs. Anyway, so it meant that he could marry Anne. So he married Anne and England became Protestant. Hooray, brilliant. Now, with this, time skipped on a bit. With this, it brought things like Catholics being questioned for heresy and being punished, and all kinds of problems with that. There were lots of executions for people who won't conform. One of them executions were Henry's top councillor, who'd been councillor for years and years, and he were a member of the Privy Council during Henry VII's reign, Henry VIII's dad. And that was Thomas More, who was an old giffer, who was Catholic through and through. And he refused to acknowledge that Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn was legitimate. He was like, no, you're Catholic. You've been married to Catherine of Aragon all this time. You can't just get a divorce. We're Catholic. What are you doing? So he refused that it was real. So Henry just had him executed. So by now, Catholicism was getting to be a bit of a swear word in Tudor England. Anyway, skip forward another wife. We'll skip forward to Jane. Jane Seymour, Henry's third wife, had a little baby and she gave him a boy. Yay! Henry was made up. But Jane died in childbirth. I was kind of thinking we're a little bit, cursed, I think is the word. He could have the boy, but he couldn't have the girl. Anyway, when Henry died, Edward had been born and raised Protestant. Jane was Protestant as well, and that's one of the things Henry liked about her. So he came to the throne as a young lad, and he insisted that the country remained true to its Protestant roots, and he was the head of the English church then, and it went on. He had Bibles published in English, so now the public were all like, whoa, what's this shit here? Let's just make sure the priests aren't been lying to us all the time. People, it weren't all as joyous as that. The people were still a little bit miffed that Henry had burnt down the monasteries and he'd taken all away their sacred items. It were a bit of overkill, really, just to say they were just shifting religion, believing in the same God. You know what I mean? Anyway, he'd also given a lot of the land to his mates and the nobles, so the peasants and the normal public were a bit annoyed, as you would be. But anyway, Edward came along, and that's where we're up to. He had the Bible published. He had his right-hand man, Thomas Cranmer, to help him with this. Thomas Cranmer reverted from Catholicism, helped Henry get his divorce from Anne of Cleves, and reverted to Protestantism, and kind of stuck with that. He rode with that. He rode it out. It was doing him world of good. He'd had a secret marriage anyway, so actually it did him favours. He could be married and be a Protestant at the time. He could then just go, oh yay, because when I was Catholic and I was a priest and I weren't supposed to marry, I did. Oh, I'm Protestant now, so it's fine. So we were all suited him. Anyway, Edward died after him and Thomas Cranmer invented the Common Book of Prayer, the Book of Prayer wrote in English, and he was succeeded by his cousin, Jane Grey, the 9-day queen. He picked her. He had two sisters. He had Mary, his oldest sister, who was the rightful heir, Elizabeth, and then it skipped to his cousin, Jane Grey. Jane was actually fifth in line, but he didn't want the Scots branch, who were fourth in line, to get their hooks in. So it just went straight to Jane. Now, Mary Tudor, who were the rightful heir to the throne, in terms of where she was born, she was the next Tudor, went batshit mental. She was like, why is Jane taking my throne? So she led a rebellion. Now, up north, Catholics were thick through and through, and they couldn't really be that well monitored down south, so they were gathering quite a little army, and they rode to London, kicked Jane off the throne, and that was the end of Jane. She lasted 9 days. She didn't even leave the tower in them 9 days. She didn't really get a whole lot of stuff done, which leads me into another question which were asked by somebody else called Suzanne. What did Jane Grey do in her 9 days? Not much, really. She didn't really do much. She didn't even want to be queen, to be fair. Anyway, Mary asked Jane if she would revert to Catholicism, and Jane was like, no. And there's two lines of thinking about that. Some people think she asked her so her soul would go to heaven when she was going to be executed, and some people think Jane was going to be executed anyway because it was Mary's marriage contract with Philip of Spain. She wanted to marry, who was also Catholic. He couldn't wait to get his little Catholic hook back into little Protestant England and show it right. So anyway, so that happened. Then Mary came along. Now Mary was batshit mental. She was Bloody Mary. She was called Bloody Mary for appropriate reasons. She burned everyone. If you were Protestant, you were dead. You repent or die. Thomas Cranmer didn't stand a chance. She burnt him at stake with his little book of prayer in his hand, just in the fire, right? She didn't care. There's all kinds of stories. One of the common stories about Bloody Mary is when she was burning Protestants, she threw a pregnant woman onto a fire who gave birth, and then the baby was chucked back in the fire. But that kind of story keeps coming up in Tudor Times through and through. It's just a reoccurring story. So whether it's true or not, don't know. But she did not like Protestants. So now we've got a flip. We've gone from Catholicism in Henry's time to Protestantism with Henry, the head of the church. His son, Protestant, Jane Grey, executed for being Protestant. And now the public are being told, revert back to Catholicism or you will be burnt alive. And that's not a nice way to go. So what are you going to do? So there were a few people trying to lead rebellions. People used to meet in secret. Generally, it were known who were Protestant and who were Catholic. But things get really interesting when we're talking about secrecy. When Elizabeth came along, when Mary died, Elizabeth inherited the throne, her younger sister. She's the one. It went Mary, Elizabeth, Edward. So we had Edward get the throne because he was a boy, then Mary because she was next in line, and now it's Elizabeth's turn, Elizabeth I. Now Elizabeth had been brought up a Protestant as well. So when she inherited the throne, she was like, right, we are done. Once and for all, we are done with that mental Catholic stuff. We are going to be Protestants. And she went to town with it. She had so many plots to try and kill her. It was unreal. And I can't even mention them. There's hundreds. The one I will mention is the Babington plot, which I've wrote about in the tutorials. You can hop across and read about that. And the Babington plot was where her cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, who was Catholic, was allegedly trying to seize the English throne and hired a man to kill her, basically. That's the long and short of it. Because she had lots of support in England from the Catholics who were practising secretly, who wanted rid of the Protestant Queen. Right? Elizabeth hired priest hunters. So she'd go around and she'd find the Catholic priests and she'd execute them. So what happened is, and this is, I don't know why I'm smiling, it just makes me laugh this, a lot of priests went to France a lot of people went to France to train to be priests. They were safe in France, it's fine. Just in England, you're not allowed to be Catholic. Catholics weren't allowed in England, you'd just be executed. It'd be stupid to even admit you were. Obviously, there were some, and there'd be people practising in little towns and villages, all at secret. And they'd get around it. Now, Elizabeth hired people called priest hunters. And you think, there's no priests in England, and she sent them all away. But what used to happen is the wealthy people who told Elizabeth they were Protestants but didn't really want to be, they were like, I'm really Catholic, I don't really want to change, hired these priests to come across from France and pretty much said they were things like au pairs as such, like Tudor medieval time au pairs. And they come from France to teach their children or to housekeep or to do things like that. And actually what they were priests, and they'd come to preach. Now, the noble people at the time invented things called priest holes. There were a famous guy called Nicholas Owens who famously built all these priest holes in these old stately homes. You can go and see them, they're fantastic. They're like little crevices what priests used to hide under. I'll put some pictures on link to this video so you can see. They're like little crevices what priests used to hide under. So if the house got raided by the priest hunters, they'd come in and it would just look like a normal house, and the priest hunters would go looking for artificial walls or lifting up floorboards, trying to search out these priests. And the priests would be there for days under these pokey, crappy little holes with no food, in really, really horrible rancid conditions, just full of excrement, no food, dark, damp. in these little priest holes, and they really are just holes. It's not like a cellar all kitted out with sofas and stuff like that. It really was like 3 foot tall by 2 foot wide, and the priests would just lay in it. So that's what they used to do. Anyway, there were a secret society. The priests what came across from France belonged to this. I'm just going to check. There's just Swiss society. I always say it wrong. And these had all secret symbols. So what used to happen is the Catholics then used to have these secret symbols hidden on their doors to show that they were part of the Swiss society, and you could go there and practice Catholicism safely. That's how underground it went. It became this weird, ridiculous religion where you preach it, you're going to be executed. You learn it, you're going to be executed. But actually, you've had it as part of your country's heritage for such an awful long time. How do you just shake it off? It's like telling English people to stop eating chips. You can't do it. Stop drinking tea. Tea's illegal. No, I'm just going to drink it in a cupboard. Right? And that's what happened. Except with religion, not with tea or chips. Anyway. So that was that. She had things like the Armada. This is Philip again. This is Mary's husband again. Got kicked out of the country because he's a mental Catholic. Tried to marry her to revert her back to Catholicism. Elizabeth was like, hell no, what do you think you're doing? Get bent. So he launched an Armada to try and revert England back to Catholicism. And Elizabeth kicked his arse. She was badass. So she kicked his arse. Anyway, so we had all this and these secret societies. Now, on Elizabeth's deathbed, she named her cousin the Scottish King James VI as her successor. She didn't want to leave it to anyone else. She didn't have any heirs. She had to leave it to somebody. She'd murdered Mary, who were obvious choice, although not so much obvious because she was Catholic. But her son James VI of Scotland, became James I of England. He was the first James to be the King of England. And he was Protestant as well, and that's why she picked him to carry the Protestant line on. James is the man who Guy Fawkes tried to blow up at the Houses of Parliament, and that was a plot to kill the Protestant king, to revert the country back to Catholic ways. Now, the gunpowder plot were all secret underground thing, and this were letters being passed between men who knew each other. A lot of them were cousins, and they kind of named each other when they got caught as well, which is ridiculous, but that's a different story in itself. And they used to meet. Now, where I live in Sheffield, and literally just down the road, there's a little tiny house, and I'll put a picture to this one as well, called the Revolution House. And it's, just in between, just north of Chesterfield, coming on way to Sheffield. And in the Revolution House is where they used to meet, or they did meet once or twice. I don't really know, this is really bad, I don't know. They met there, it's something important. And they got together and they plotted the gunpowder plot to get rid of James I, to blow him up at Parliament. But it failed, and so on and so forth, and the rest, as I say, is history. Gradually, over time, Catholicism started to be a little bit more accepted. James wrote his own Bible in English, called the King James Bible, which was 80% ripped off, 80% translated from the Tyndale Bible, which came from the teachings of Martin Luther, but a man called William Tyndale translated that. So this Martin Luther guy had his claws well and truly in the Protestant thread in England. He'd well and truly done what he'd set out to do. What a proud man he must be, being a little monk and then taking on the whole Catholic empire and winning. You've got to be quite proud of that. Eventually, though, Scotland still had quite a lot of Catholics. The Irish certainly was Catholic. They were trying to break away even more from the English, even though it was owned by the English crown. And that caused pockets and fractions as well. And that led to other conflicts. So, still turbulent times happening now in terms of religion, in Protestant and Catholicism terms. I don't know, I'm just rambling now. That's still happening now, and that's all away from Henry VIII, trying to get his end away with Anne Boleyn, right? And listening to this guy, Martin Luther, to do it. Had he not listened to Martin Luther, had Catherine had a boy, England would have still probably, well, I think so, probably been very much Catholic, and the whole history would have been completely different. As for people having secret societies, well, secret meetings, yeah, probably not secret societies. Secret meetings, definitely. Plots, definitely. Secret symbols, the Jesuit Society used to put symbols on doors of Catholics, the priest holes. So yeah, that's how people defended themselves, really, and practiced religion secretly. Thank you.